Hi everyone, welcome to week 4 of research writing. I got through all of your work cited assignments from last week. I got all those done by Saturday night. And just an encouragement to you, I know some of you probably did not do as well as you had hoped. I actually recreated and had to rewrite a new rubric for this assignment because the one that I had before was even stricter. And this was actually the way I created it now is a very generous works or rubric for this assignment. The one I had before is a lot stricter, and I wanted to make it not as strict in the sense of how many errors equaled what grade, because this is meant to be practice. I didn't expect anyone to get it perfect. So it's meant to be practice. And so even with the adjustments, I know that some of you are probably not thrilled with the grades that you received. So just to encourage you, that assignment is worth only 5% of your total final grade. So don't stress out with that. But it was meant to be practice because in this last week, by tonight, you will be submitting the works cited and sentence outline. So hopefully that was good practice for you to do that, because there are some things that you had to look up in this assignment that aren't in Lester and Lester. Things on Instagram and other types of sources that are common sources these days, but weren't when the textbook was written, or even when some things on the Purdue OWL site were produced. So that's about last week. For this coming week, your intro and conclusion. I'm looking at the supplement reading, chapters 10, 14, and 15. They're obviously required reading anyway, but pay really, really close attention. Study them, write notes, study and take notes, write your intro and conclusion, and then come back to these resources to make sure that you actually have everything in there that it says that you need to be included. It might seem odd to be writing your conclusion now when you haven't written the body of your paper yet, but the conclusion gives you a goal, a focus. Like in your sentence outline, you have the entire outline, and the end point, your main argument, is towards the end of that. Like what you want to conclude and what you want the reader to walk away with or walk away believing. Having the conclusion written, a draft of the conclusion written before you write the paper, gives you a goal, a point, a target, like the target sign for the store, like that red bullet point, that red point in the middle of the target. That's your conclusion, and now you have something to focus towards and work towards and write towards when you're working on your paper. You know where you want to end up, so that will help you make sure that you get there. So looking at these chapters for the supplementary and writing your introduction, there are 4 things that it says need to be in there: the subject, the background, the problem, and the thesis. Those 4 things have to be in your introduction in some form or another. The subject, obviously, identify the topic, define it, and keep it specific to one issue. Provide some data, some background on this problem. Why is it a problem? If you're writing about something that's historical, give facts and some other things to help draw attention to why it's an issue. If it's not historical, there's still background information you can use to share with the reader why this is relevant, why it is an issue, why it needs to be talked with, and why it's being written about. Then the problem. The whole point of the paper is to explore or resolve the problem. So identify it and explain the complications you see as a result of this problem, of your issue. And finally, your thesis needs to be in there, preferably towards the end of your conclusion. Your introduction. Towards the end of it, this will, for a paper of 6 pages, probably about a 2-paragraph introduction is what you're looking at. And toward the end of that will be your thesis. And that's where you kind of take all of the subject, the background, the problem, all of that kind of culminates, and then you hit your thesis, and then you work into your paper. So the rubric for this assignment is based on things like, do you have the subject? Do you have the background? Do you have the problem? Do you have the thesis in your introduction? And if you don't have those things, it gets marked down. So make sure those key things are there. Same goes for the conclusion. There's a checklist for writing your conclusion. Reaffirm your thesis. It doesn't have to be restated word for word, but you need to restate a variation of it. A judgment, you need to reach a decision, or a final announcement, proclamation, whatever about your thesis. And then discuss the implications of your findings. What does it mean? What does your final understanding what does your final understanding mean? And what does everything that you researched, and what does it all culminate into? You need to discuss that. A directive, you need to offer a plan of action or a proposal, something that will put into effect the ideas throughout your paper. Like if you have a topic and you list 3 reasons why this issue is there, then you need to provide a proposal that addresses how to fix it, how to correct it, how to deal with it. And then the ending. For a conclusion like this, for this paper, you're probably looking at a couple paragraphs for your conclusion. So then the very last paragraph, the last few sentences of that last paragraph, bring the paper to a final closure. So those 5 things, that's part of the rubricus too. I'm going to be looking at, did you have those 5 things in there? Those are essential. And then some other things that are very good to note in chapter 14 are how inappropriate grammar really does undermine the credibility of your paper. If it's too informal, if there's lots of mistakes, it will not be taken seriously. And granted, you're most likely not going to publish this somewhere. Maybe you will try to, which is great. But remember that the audience that you're writing to is scholarly. They're educated. This is a scholarly paper, a formal research paper. And so you're writing to people who are going to be familiar with acceptable grammar, with good standards of correct grammar. I'm sorry. So remember that that inappropriate grammar really does undermine what you're trying to do with your whole entire research paper. And they give a couple of good examples of why that is so, and they use some good examples for that. And then there's some other key grammar issues to note. So that is the big core of this week. So you're going to be, again, this next week when you submit your intro and conclusion, it will be in line with the rest of your paper. So you'll have your outline and your title page and your proposal, your sentence outline, your introduction and your conclusion, and your works cited. That will all be in what you submit this week, because everything else will have been updated and tweaked. Not final, probably, but updated and tweaked. I might not look at those as closely. I'll be looking mostly solely at the intro and conclusion. I might peruse the other ones, but I've already looked at them, and I will look at them again later on when you're going through more final drafts and things like that. So yeah, just keep that in mind, that it's not just your intro and conclusion, but it's in conjunction with everything else in the paper that you're submitting. And then for the discussion board, be sure you've done all the other reading for it before you go to the discussion board and talk about the paragraph here about the Passover Seder, what's good about it, what needs to be changed, thoughts and observations about it. I've been seeing really, really good interaction. A lot of times there's a lot of 1 or 2 page responses, but I've been seeing more. In past courses, that's what I've seen a lot of, but I've been seeing a lot of really good interaction dialogue in this group, so that's been great and encouraging. I believe that is it. As always, email me with any questions, and I'll be happy to help you out, and I'll be able to get back with you as soon as I can within 24 hours. So have a great week, and we'll see you soon.